Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friday Forum Live. We are live today from Point Blank Music School in London. Point Blank is an international school offering a wide range of higher education programs and professional courses in music production, DJ, music business, and singing and radio. We are joined live today by Sara Simms. Sara is a multi-instrumentalist best known for techno sets and production skills. She has played across the globe with many worldwide releases, including on her own label, Symmetry Sounds. Sara is also the communication manager at Mix in Key and the Captain Plugins lead trainers. Sara is also a former Point Blank student, and it's a real pleasure to have you with us today, Sara, to look at how to produce a techno track with Captain Plugins. So, hello, Sara, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me today.
It's a real pleasure. So yes, we're really excited about this session today. So you're going to show us some production tips focusing on techno tracks using some of the plugins that you know really well, obviously, because you've really helped with training people on those products.
Yes, today we're going to learn how to compose a techno track using Captain Plugins. So I'm going to take you through some of the basics, and you can learn how you can use the plugins to start off your track.
Brilliant, brilliant. Really looking forward to it. And without further ado, shall we start?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start off just by sharing my screen here. Can you see my Ableton session okay?
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to take you through a walkthrough with Captain Plugins. And Captain Plugins are Mixed in Key's award-winning series of plugins. And the cool thing about these plugins is that you can connect the plugins together so they communicate with each other, and you can play the chords, the melodies, and the bass lines in the same key. So when I'm producing my tracks, I like to start off with building the bed track first, the drums, bass, chords. So we're going to get that together first. So I'm going to start off with Captain Beat, and Captain Beat is the drum production plugin in the series here. So I'll put an instance of Captain Beat onto a Midi track. And here we go. Here's Captain Beat here. So the first thing I'm going to do in Captain Beat is I'm going to change the drum kit. There's a lot of drum kits that are inside Captain Beat here. And if I go to drum kit, I'll go to Mixed in Key Official, and I'm going to select a 909. So it's a recreation of Roland's 909 kit here. And another thing that I'm going to do is by default, when you turn on Captain Beat here, this fill feature is on, which is actually a really cool feature. There's a lot of different drum fills, but I'm going to turn that off for now. And one thing you can do with Captain Beat is you can either use the internal samples or you can use your own samples as well. So let's go to my desktop here, and I'm just going to grab a kick drum. So let's go over to Captain Beat here, and I will just put the sample right here. And I'm going to solo this track here. Let's turn up this Captain Beat track here. And there's my kick drum there. So next, let's get some other drums in here. Let's go down to the open hat, and to program it in the rhythm, I'm going to click on Rhythm, and then I'm going to click on Mixed in Key here and select Foundation Rhythms and scroll down, and let's go with these upbeat eighths. So there we go, nice classic pattern. Next, the closed hat. So to program the closed hat here, I will click on Rhythm. There's actually all different drum patterns that have been programmed by different producers. So if you're producing other styles as well, these could be really helpful. Jack Masick made some patterns, JS Beats. We have Eldre the Giant, he made some hip-hop patterns, and Polaris made some drum and bass patterns here. but I'm going to stick with some of the techno rhythms here. So when I click on these patterns here, you can see they show up right away. I like this one, the book. It's a little more minimal, so I'll stick with that for today. And then let's scroll up and let's program in some claps here. Now you can see in Captain Beat in the top left-hand corner here, each of the tracks has a little letter on it. And that letter corresponds with your letter on your computer keyboard. So you can use your computer keyboard and you can program in your drums. So you can't see my computer keyboard today, you just have to trust I am using it. But here's how you program in a clap. I'm going to use my Q key that corresponds with the little Q here on the clap. I think we have a little bit of lag from Zoom, which is okay. So move this clap over here. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do next here is I can actually use Captain Beat to edit my pattern a little bit here. So if I go to controls, I can change the attack or the decay on the drums, and this applies to just one channel at a time. Can change the volume and the panning, and I'm going to use these effects a little bit here. So there's a filter. And then you can also apply reverb and delay. So once you have something that you're happy with, it's time to export everything. And if you go to export, there's different export options. You can choose to export the master audio or the master Midi. And what that is that's everything that you've programmed here. So I will drag out the master Midi for Captain Beat there. And let me make an audio track there. And if you like, you can drag out the master audio. Channel Midi and channel audio. Let's check out what those are. So if you'd like to export an individual track here, say for example this closed hat, you can take the channel audio and you can export it just like that. And you can take the channel Midi. So you can see here's my closed hat. Audio works just as well. So one last thing I'm going to do before we leave Captain Beat here is I actually made my own kick drum just for this track here, something that's a little bigger than this one. So I'm going to mute my kick that I've made in Captain Beat here. And let's just delete these patterns here. And what I will do is I'm going to take the master Midi without the kick, and I'm gonna put it on this Captain Beat Midi channel here. Let's delete this audio track. And then here's a handy tip. If you make sure loop is on your Midi files, what you can do is you can just stretch out this file. Then that way you don't have to copy and paste. So it's a bit of a time-saving feature. Okay, so let's put my Captain Beat together with a couple of the other elements that I already had, just to give the track a bit of a start. Okay, sounds good. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to group these drums together. So group tracks, and we'll call this drums. Okay, so we have a foundation to start with. Now, next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can build some chords. I think at this point in a track, you do have a bit of a choice and option. You could build your bass line first, or you could also start to build your chords. I'm going to show you how you can make some chord progressions in Captain Chords. So I'll bring up Captain Chords here. So here's Captain Chords. You'll notice right at the top here, there's different tabs for different parts of your song. Now, usually in techno, it's more of like a loop-based music. We just expand on one idea or one loop. So we might not be using all these different tabs. I'm going to work just today in the verse tab. You can also use the play tab here to play in some chords. So let's find a cool sound first, and just let me show you a couple different features of Captain plugins. So one thing you can do that's very cool is you can select a VST instrument and open it right inside the plugin. So let's scroll down here. I'm going to open up an instance of Massive, and just taking 1 second here. Okay, let's load in a sound. So Detroit style techno is certainly one sound that is very chord based. What you can do here is you can use your computer keyboards to play in some different chords there. So you can do a little jam here. If I press spacebar, what's going to happen is I'm going to start recording in some chords. And across the A to J row, there's all different chords in the root position, and those chords are in the scale that I'm working in. So I'm working in A minor. I would say most techno is maybe written in a minor key. Some might be written in a major key. If you're experimental or you want to try something different, you can also try writing in any of the jazz modes here that are in Captain Chords. But I'm going to stick with minor, and let's just get a very simple chord progression going on here. Its filter needs to come down a bit. Okay, so just something simple like that. You can click on this edit, and you can edit your chord progression in the verse. So that takes, just to review, that took everything that I was doing in the play tab and brings it over to the verse. So that's one way you can jam with your computer keyboard and program in some chords there. I'm going to clear these out, and I'm actually going to shut down Massive here. What I'm going to do next is I would like to use this verse page here, the verse tab, to build a chord progression. And to do that, I'm going to use some different types of chords. I'm going to go into this VST output mode, and it says here that audio is muted and Captain is outputting MIDI notes only. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to send the MIDI from Captain Chords to another VST plugin here. So let's just go down to my user library. And I'll bring in a sound. This is a sound that I made. It's a little more trancey, but I've noticed some of the new techno uses kind of like some old school, kind of like trance style chords. So let's route this MIDI here. Let's go MIDI from, we're going to go, oh, wait a minute. Let's put this right beside Captain Chords here, just so it's very clear what we're doing here. So we're going to go MIDI from track 10, Captain Chords, and then set the monitor to in. So now let's go back and program some chords. So along the top row of Captain plugins here, these are all chords. These are all triads from the A minor scale. So I'm going to start to build a chord progression. So first chord can be A minor. My next chord is going to be a D minor chord. You just click this add button to add another chord. So this one I'll do an F major. And then I'd like to come back to another A at the end. I want to actually reduce this chord progression so it's a little simpler. And one cool feature that we have in Captain plugins is we have the ability to edit MIDI notes. So I'm just going to get rid of that F there. And then on this last chord, I'm going to subtract the E there and then drop that the C down to a B. Here's a handy tip as well on Mac. If you use 2 fingers, you can use those to scroll and also to zoom in. So that's 2 fingers on your mouse pad there. So here's how our chord progression sounds so far. Okay, sounds good. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to duplicate all of these chords here. So I'm going to press on this duplicate button. And then for my last chord here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this chord into 2 parts. And I'm going to click on the first chord here. Let's make this into an A minor triad. And then for this last chord here, I'm going to use a B diminished. And below each of these chords here, there's some different chord substitutions that you can use. And all of these chords are chosen to be like nice complements to the chords on the top row here. So this is a B diminished 7th. Once again, I kind of want to work some things out here, kind of jazz things up a little bit. I'm going to take this E here and I'll move it up to an F. You can move some notes around here. And I'm going to remove this F over here. And what else can I do here? By default, Captain Chords uses something called minimize leap, which makes for smooth voice leading between the chords. So if I click on minimize leap here, what it's going to do is it's going to make sure that there's a small transition between one note to the next in a triad, kind of similar to the way that a skilled keyboard player would play the chords if you gave them some sheet music to read off of. Okay, and also this A minor chord over here is not sitting the same way the first one is here. So just let me take you through the inversions here. It's set to minimize leap. There's the default triad, so it's looking like the first A minor there. So default triad, root, 3rd, 5th, well, a flat 3rd because we're in a minor key. First inversion. If we use the first inversion here, what that is it takes the root of the chord and it puts it on top of the chord. And the second inversion, if we click on that, it takes the 5th and it puts it on top of the triad there. So let's go back to that default triad. And lastly, I'd like to add in a rhythm to my chord progression here. So let's click on the rhythm tab. There's all sorts of different rhythms, tons of different rhythms that are inside Captain Chords here. Everything from some simple rhythms to complex, and then down at the end, there's some new rhythms. So you can really spend all day going through all these rhythms here. I'm going to go with aerodynamic. So let's click OK. And let's hear how this chord progression sounds now. Okay, I like it. It sounds great. Once again, it's kind of like a trance techno vibe, but you might use some chords in maybe like one part of your song, maybe not the whole song there. So I'm going to drag this clip now to get my MIDI clip out of Captain Chords. It's very simple. I just drag it up to my DAW there, and I can close this out here. And you can see now that Silent is playing the chord progression. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mute my chords for 1 second because I want to focus on creating a bass line. So let's make 2 MIDI tracks here. We'll go to plugins, and I'm going to show you how you can make a bass line in Captain Melody. Not just a bass line, a rolling bass line. So first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect Captain Chords to Captain Plugins. And I wanted to make the bass line after I made the chords so I could show everyone this here. So once you connect Captain Melody to Captain Chords, you can see that all of the chords are written along the top of the plugin here. So that can be very helpful. Let's grab a sound preset now. I'll just start using a sound preset here. So I'm going to grab the 303. This is, of course, in a higher octave than what we just heard there, and press OK. And I will scroll down here. And I would like to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so let's start building this rolling bass line here. Okay, so there we go. And I'm just going to copy this pattern over here. Okay, so really simple bass line. Let's switch up the sound now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to VSD output. So once again, my audio is muted and Captain is going to output MIDI notes only. And if I go to output tutorial here, in case you need a refresher after you watch the session here at home, then you can just read through this quick little tutorial. It takes less than 5 minutes to set up, and it actually changes for every DAW. So if you use Logic or Cubase, you're going to get a different tutorial there. So let's go back down to the user library. And I'm going to bring up this SH101. This is a bass sound here that I created. So Roland Cloud plugin. This is a great plugin for making bass sounds. Yes, thank you. We saw you already. And we're going to go MIDI from Captain Melody, and set the monitor to in. So now when we get Captain Melody rolling along here, the SH101 is going to be playing the bass sounds. Let's use Captain Melody here and this move tool here to move around some different notes just for a little bit of variation. So you can see up here, there's different chord degrees here and also some different colors. So what does everything mean here? Well, the blue notes here are the root, the third, and the fifth, and those are the most stable notes within a chord. The green notes have a little bit more tension. They're the fourths and the sixth. And then the yellow notes here have even more tension. They have the most amount of tension, and they always want to resolve to something else. So what I'm going to do here is I'll click on this A here. And if I click on the third, you can see this note moves up to the C here, which is the third of this custom A chord here. And if I click on this note here, let's move it up to the second. So I have a little variation on the bass there. I can drag that out to my DAW there. And if I want, I can click on both of these here and move them back to the roots. So I actually have two different very usable bass lines. So let's hear what this first one sounds like. So it has just a bit of extra movement at the end. It's good to do sometimes just a little bit of extra variation there. It's going to help you out. I'm going to use this straight ahead one, and let's hear it with the chords here. Okay, so that sounds good so far. I'm going to turn off these chords one more time here because it's time to make the melody parts. So we're going to use Captain Melody. Let's go back to the plugins here. So melody for techno can sometimes be a little bit on the minimal side. We're going to press connect here. And the types of melodies that I would like to add in today are going to be some acid lines. And to make these here, I'm going to use the Roland Cloud, the TB303. So let's bring that up here. Just loading up here. And I just modified a preset here. It's like kind of a 90s acid bass sounds. So this is what we're going to be making the melody sound with. So right away, let's start to do the routing here. So we're going to be routing from Captain Melody on channel 14. So we scroll down here, we go Captain Melody, and then set the monitor to in. And let's go back to Captain Melody. And this time we're going to use the idea box to create a melody here. So this is a very innovative tool in Captain Melody. Can certainly help you get melody ideas kind of started or written. To create the idea box, I just have to press the plus button here. And it's going to create a 2-bar idea. My ideas for techno are sometimes a little shorter. So I'm going to delete the second bar here, and let's try to make a really good 1-bar idea. And then perhaps we can use that again and repeat that idea. So I'm going to use these 4 tabs up at the top here to help me shape and sculpt this melody. If I go to first note here, what I can do is I can choose the first note that I want to appear in this melody. So right now I have the root and the 5th. Every time I press update here, I'm going to get a different pattern. And if you press undo, you can go back a few steps. That sounds pretty good. Let's keep on shaping this here. Oh, I'll show you lanes next. So if we go to the lanes tab, this is a very interesting feature here. What lanes can do is it can determine the probability that certain types of notes are going to appear in your melody. So for example, if you want a really kind of straight ahead melody, you might want to take the seconds and the 7ths out entirely. That way you're left with perhaps the safer notes, the root, the 3rd, the 5th, the 4th, and the 6th. Or you can put them a little bit in. If you wanted to, you could have your entire melody on the root. That might be very techno. So I'm going to go with that there. Let's go to the shape tab next. So with shape here, what you can do is you can adjust the amount of shape and leap that your melody has. So these terms kind of mean exactly what they say, kind of determines like I want to say the slope of the melody, maybe the scale of the melody, how high up and down it's going there. So you can play around with that. And you can change the direction of the notes here. You can change the octave. Let's go to the rhythm tab here, and you can determine how many notes are going to be in your melody. Let's adjust the triplets here. We can give it more of a triplet feel. And we can add in rests. Okay, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to work with this here. What I'd like to do is I'd like to take this into the third bar. So sometimes in order to do that, what I will do is I will take the first note here and I highlight everything. And why I put the first note in is just as a placeholder. So I make sure I can put this in the third bar. And then I'll delete these notes here. So if you wanted to make a little variation to that, what you could do is you could use the move tool here. And then you can move this note up here. Sounded better before where it was. So I'm going to stick with this melody here. This is going to be my TB303 idea here. So we'll put that there. And we'll just close this out here. And if you wanted to, this is more of an, I would call this like an A melody, because we're repeating the same idea. Another thing you could do is you could make something that was like an A. Sometimes we have melodies that are A, B, A, C. You could make a different idea box over here in the fourth bar here, and make a little variation to your melody. Just for the sake of time here, I'm just going to stick with these two ideas, well, which are actually the same idea, and we'll just go from there. And I need to make sure that I put the VST output mode here. So I'm just outputting the MIDI to the TB03. Now, let's also make sure that this is the length is set to 4 bars there. An acid line is going to sound good, I think, with some kind of sequence underneath. So I've written a sequence here. So I used Captain Play here to write this sequence, and I made this sequence with just an Arturia plugin. Okay, lastly, let's put in one of my favorite components of techno tracks, which is the violin. You don't hear violins too often in techno, but when techno first started, there were certainly some violins used in some of the seminal tracks in the genre here. So in Captain Play, here's what we can do with Captain Play. So we can use Captain Play to play in some chords, and let's find a violin sound here. Let's just explore this library for a minute. So there's some bass sounds, there's guitars, there's keys, there's leads, there's pads, plucks, and down at the bottom, we have some lovely violins here. So I can use Captain Play here to play in some chords, and you can see in across my computer keyboard here, the root position chords are on the A to J row. first inversion is the Q to U row. And the second inversion is down at the bottom here. So if you wanted to, you could play in some chords here. This is very familiar. We've seen a layout like this already in Captain Chords. One thing that makes Captain Play a little bit different than Captain Chords is over on the left-hand side here, we don't have any of the rhythmic options available to us. We don't have the rhythm options. So to use Captain Play, you just have to be a good musician and play things in on time, which is what we should be doing all the time anyhow. Let's go back to the Play Melodies tab here, or let's go to the Play Melodies tab. And here, what you'll find is the notes of the A minor scale, or whatever scale you have selected, are mapped across the computer keyboard. So you can use the Play Melodies here to improvise, and whatever you play is always going to be in key with your scale. So let's go to the Quantize options here. I just clicked on Quantize here. And I'm also going to quantize to the note end. And I'm going to switch from 1/16 to a 1/16 triplet here. Okay. And I will start in a little jam here. Just let me turn off a couple things so I don't have quite as much going here. Okay, so my violin melody, if I press spacebar, I can record something in. If I press bracket, I can go to a higher octave. Okay, so let's record in a little something. Okay, so there's my idea there. I'm going to take that and I will put that on this track here. And I think I got one wrong note there, so we'll just remove that. Okay, so the idea started here. And just let me select everything here. Let's just go to Quantize settings, 1/16 and 1/16 triplet. Okay. And we'll select everything. And we'll just quantize that. Okay, so we have some sort of melody going there. So you'll see in a short period of time here, I was able to get some ideas going here. So we started off with the chords. There's our bass line here. TB303. Okay, so one last thing that we're going to do before totally leaving this session here, because I do want to actually show you how I built this into a track and arranged a little bit, is we're going to next hop over to Mixed in Key 10. So Mixed in Key is a harmonic analysis software, and you can use this as a software alongside your DAW. You can also use, we do have a Studio Edition available, so you can use it inside your DAW. We have Mixed in Key Studio Edition, but this is the latest edition of Mixed in Key, and we improved the harmonic analysis algorithm in it. The algorithm was built by Swiss, British, and American data scientists, and it was improved by 10%. So what does mixed-in key actually do here? Well, it analyzes the key of your tracks, and this can be helpful for producers and also for DJs. So let's just start to bring in a couple different loops here. This is one that I previously analyzed, but I'll show you how it looks here. So up top here, we have something called the Camelot wheel. And the Camelot wheel can either tell us the key of the track in Camelot notation, or we can also switch it to, for those of you who are a little bit more familiar with theory, we can switch to flats or sharps. So I'll show you what the flats or sharps look like there. Traditional keys, music keys there. So let's go back to Camelot because that might be easier for some people here. So we can see that this loop that I brought in here has a key result of 8A. Now 8A is actually A minor. So that will work with the song that I am in the midst of composing here. So that's a synth loop in A minor. So we're going to get back to mixed-in key in 1 second, but I did want to show you that it can easily find the key of some samples here. So let's add in a track here. And let's bring in this loop. Okay, we certainly have a few too many things going on at one time. The track definitely right now needs to be arranged. So you can use mixed-in key alongside your sessions to find the key of kick drums, different types of samples. Let's close this down for 1 second. And before we get more into mixed-in key, I would like to just show you how I arrange the session a little bit. So let's find my sessions here. Okay, so this is an arrangement that I was working on for this track. This is all the different parts here. And we certainly don't have time today to cover arrangements, but that would be the next step once you've started to build all the different elements. With Captain plugins, then after that, you can start to arrange your track here. Ableton is starting up. I must have a lot of plugins on this session, so it's gonna just take a quick second to go through and just restart here. Okay. So here we go. So just let me walk you through here. Some different parts here. So I from my Captain Beat here, I dragged the audio files, the different audio tracks for the different drum parts, because I do like to arrange and treat those a little bit differently. So let's just go through this and we can just look at some of the different parts that were built with Captain plugins here. So shaker. My chords. I brought in the claps from Captain B. Some unfiltered audio. The loop that you help me make. also made some pads too. Okay, so that is just a bit of an arrangement with all the different parts that were composed with Captain Plugins.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It sounded really, really great. It's really, really great that, to see how you've built up the ID and how those the plugins, the chord and the melody can really help to generate IDs. And I love the way they're designed. I mean, I've picked up on the minimized leap, for example, regarding inversion, that often maybe people who start learning with root position are not always aware. So you end up with chords jumping quite a lot and sounding a little bit maybe slightly more amateurish, I suppose, just because you're getting those kind of triads going up and down the keyboard. And that, like you've said, more experienced players would normally try to use inversion and maybe minimize and make sometimes what is a very simple chord progression, make it sound a lot more interesting and rich somehow using those techniques. So it's amazing to see how the plugin has been designed and incorporates all those ideas or techniques that songwriters and composers are using all the time without probably thinking about it so much. So it's been really, really interesting. I also think the way it's designed, it's a great teaching tool as well for people to understand, obviously, all the different degrees and how to build a chord progression within a scale. So, like you've mentioned, your root and your third and your fifth being the strong, if you like, within a key, and then starting to introduce the fourth and sixth and the second and seventh and substitution. I think it's not only a great tool for composing, especially for people who may not have that kind of music theory knowledge to start with, and having that kind of confidence that they can build something which is still going to be really strong, but also learning through the process.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Captain Plugins is great for people who either, they don't have a lot of music theory knowledge or they want to further their music theory knowledge. So it's good on both ends. And even if you have a lot of music theory knowledge, you can still use these plugins to help you in your work. So they're good for a number of levels.
Yeah, no,
yeah. Yeah, really great for getting ideas going quickly, because when we're writing music, I think the most important thing is to get the ideas that are in our minds out into the real world, into our digital audio workstations and recorded and preserved, right? Well, we have the inspiration.
Absolutely. And getting this kind of first flow of ID and really keeping rolling with ideas, and then you can, like you've done, it was really interesting showing how after that you've turned your final arrangement and obviously you've tweaked some of the parts, but you were able to get those ideas going very quick. And I completely agree with you. I think music making, it's often part of the quicker you do it, in a way, the better it is, because you're going with your instinct and you're just rolling with it. Overthinking it sometimes is not the best way to start a track anyway. I think the overthinking should come at a later stage in the production process rather than at first, because it can become a block. So it's really, really interesting to what you've done to show that process, I think. And it's great as well, the fact that those plugins all have built-in sounds. Yes. Based on quite famous sounds, obviously, from your 909 and etc., and your classic synth, whether it's a 303 or maybe a Juno pad or whatever. But then it's great that you can obviously use it in output mode only, and then effectively turn it into a MIDI file, bring it into your DAW if you want to, or keep it in Captain plugin, but then outputting to any of the VST instruments that you tend to use. So again, because I think a lot of producers out there, especially people who start, I think, and we've seen it with students, and I think all of us, and including myself, is sometimes we can be hung up into looking for the right sound to start with. And you focus on looking for that sound before you start writing anything. And that can be quite detrimental, in the creative process and the writing process. Whereas here, I think the idea of, write with something and a sound that might be a temporary sound, and just to get ideas flowing. And then after that, starting tweaking, shaping the sounds further. And I love some of the fact that also it introduces random elements. When you were doing the percentage on how many notes, how many of those degrees are going to fall into the melody, it's great. It's really, really brilliant.
Well,
so thank you very much. No, thank you. I mean, it's been great. I'm just going to look at, I think we've got some people, kind of reinforcing. We've got quite a few people watching, so it's been great, and I hope it's been a real inspiration for people. But a lot of them, reinforcing this idea of like, yes, I think there's a strong merit in writing quickly and getting an idea down into it, because tweaking it is, after that you can do it over a period of time, but it's capturing that moment, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Because you need to, as I said, you do need to get those ideas into your DAW, right? Well, you have them, right? So I think the important thing with any track is you need a place to start, right? What is the track going to be about, right? So good places for anyone who's out there writing, I find, are the bass line, and maybe sometimes give us some guidance. So some people might want to start with the bass. Also, other people might want to start with the chord progression, and others might want to start with a melody, right? So any of those places are going to give you a good foundation to start. So with Captain plugins, you can start using either Captain Chords or Captain Melody to write your melodies or your bass lines. And once you have a kind of a foundation, right, it makes the rest of the track flow a little bit easier once you decide the direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that first hurdle, isn't it? You put a sound and you've got a drum beat, and everybody can usually put a drum beat fairly easily, but it's after that first hurdle into, I'm going to start a melody. And I think generating melodies, I love the idea that, you've got this ID box, and let's start, and we're playing with the rhythm and generate some ideas. And you may not like that particular idea, but straight away it's going to give you an idea of, I like a part of it, I can shape it, I can tweak it. And once you get going, usually that's where things start to happen.
Yeah, I think Captain Melody is a very valuable tool for idea starting. You can use it. You can use it to quickly generate a part, right? That's going to give you something else you can build around, right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been great. I mean, we're getting really good feedback, and some people are saying sometimes they start with a melody, others say I may start with a bass line, or I may start like you said, everybody. But it's about getting that starting point, I think, and I think all those tools are really, really, really valuable. Because you've got days where you maybe ideas are going to flow quicker than others, and sometimes ideas don't flow as easy, and I think having those kind of tools available can be so valuable to get going.
Yes, they're great writing tools. They're really good additions to any producer's palette.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we had more time today, I was going to share some more details about mixed in key and harmonic mixing, and how producers and DJs can use mixed in key 10, but I think we might have to save this for the next session.
I think, absolutely. I mean, let's book another session. Let's do another session, and we'd be very, very happy to focus on mixing keys, especially like you mentioned, that there's been a lot of improvement made on the way the analysis is being done, and etc. So I'm sure, again, it's really relevant, I think, for people watching our channels. So we would love to do that, absolutely.
Oh, that sounds great. Well, thank you. Do we
No,
have any
pleasure.
questions? Any questions from the audience?
Not so far. It's more me, people who are, let me check, not to have a tune up chords and a melody and be able to create all these just from caption. Now, I think it's more people reinforcing how useful it is. You know, a lot of people are saying, you know, I may be stuck, and having that, it's amazing. I mean, a lot of people, I think, are genuinely impressed with, you know, how suddenly you can generate an ID, and one ID leads to another, and one to another. And I think that's where the connect feature between each plugin as well is so useful. It's that confidence that, you know, everything is going to work together.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's nice that they all can communicate together, right? And you can see the chords from Captain Chords inside Captain Melody that can be helpful for people building melodies, and also, you know, for the people who want to learn more about different types of chords and learn more about different type of music theory, right?
Yeah,
I know everyone getting into production, all producers, we don't always have the music theory background, right? So
yeah,
I think they can be great tools for helping us learn that little extra tidbit every time when we go to make a track.
Absolutely. And like we were saying, I think even if you don't have that knowledge, I'm sure it helps you build up that knowledge by using the tools.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
I mean, I would have a question. So, for example, you're right, you've written everything in A minor. Would you be able quickly, going back into Captain plugin, for example, in Chords, changing the key of the song, and then the other plugin would follow? Is it something that can you work that way, out of interest?
Yes, absolutely. Because I've already dragged out, here's the thing though, because I've already dragged out all these MIDI files.
Of course.
Right? So if I wanted to change the key at this point, what would happen is in the plugin, the key would change. You can see the chord progression is the same, but now we're just one semitone higher. Sorry, two semitones higher, one whole tone higher, because now we're in B. We were in A before.
Yeah.
So all the other plugins are going to also change, right? Because all the plugins are connected together. But I've already dragged out on this session here the MIDI files that are in A minor. So if I wanted to start again in B minor, I would just have to redrag all the MIDI files that I've made.
Of course.
But
if you had kept all the MIDI within the interface, then obviously everything would adapt, as you were saying.
Yep. Yeah, you can see all the chords here are now in the key of B, and the key has changed to B minor. So everything does adapt. And I mean, you do run into those instances, right? Like, let's say you're working on a track and you're working with a vocalist, and the vocalist wants the song in a higher or lower key, right? You might have to make a change. I am personally usually more committed to the key at the beginning of the track, because I will start building a track with kick drums that are in a certain key. So for me, I make the decision about the key that I'm going to write in right at the beginning, right? You can see my key here is in the key of A. So if I have to change the key of the track, it means I'm changing everything.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? But just to stick with the program and answer the question, yes, when you make a change in the key, it's going to reflect across in the entire suite of plugins. But you just have to remember that if you've already dragged out MIDI to your session, you're going to have to delete that, save the session with a new name, drag out the new MIDI in the new key.
Yeah, of
right?
course. Yeah. But like you've said, I think it's one of the typical example, and often, like you've said, if you're going to write instrumental music, you're probably starting with the key in mind and what feels right, what feels good. So you're going to go along with that and help you go. But if you're writing with a vocalist in mind, I mean, it's quite, well, if you don't know the vocalist and you're writing potentially for somebody to write a top line, then often you're going to have to transpose, because you never know if you don't know the singer that you're going to work with, potentially there's a high chance that they may be more comfortable in a different key, whether it's lower or higher. So yeah, no, it's a really great features.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. If you're, these are also great tools for songwriters, as you said, right? Not just electronic music producers, but people who are writing songs for other artists, because you can get song ideas going very quickly. And yes, they do have the benefit of the key transposition.
Great.
Any
Thank
other
you
questions?
No, I think we've covered a lot today, and like we've said, it would be a pleasure to let's do another session where we can focus on harmonic mixing
On harmonic mixing.
and introduce mixing key. It would be a pleasure to do that, Sarah.
Well, that sounds great.
So
Thank you for the
thank you so
invitation.
much. It's been really interesting, and I hope people are gonna get some inspiration from that session and think about hopefully help people to develop their writing skill and how to approach it.
Well, I hope so too. I would encourage everyone to, if they have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Questions about Captain plugins can go to our contact at mixedinKey.com address.
That's great, and also, please, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to post as well in the comment. The video is going to stay. It's a live session today, but the video is going to stay there forever on YouTube. So feel free to come and review it if you've missed out some stuff. If you want to rewatch some parts of the demonstration that Sarah kindly gave us, and if you have any questions, we'll keep an eye on it.
Sounds good.
Excellent. So thank you very much for watching. I think we're going to close this session for today. So thanks a lot for watching. And remember, if you want to find out more information about all our courses, you can head to pointblankmusicschool.com. If you have any question about the plugins, you want to check the plugins, you can go on Captain Plugins and Mixing Key websites. Are there demo that people can try out as well?
Well, we don't have a demo, but we do have an educational discount program that Point Blank is a part of. Yeah. So students can receive 30% off all the plugins.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So guys, yeah, take advantage of that. Go and check it out. And happy music making. So I'm wishing you all a great weekend. Stay safe, take care, and see you all very soon. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.